Welcome to the Empowered Team podcast. I'm your host, Kari Schneider, and today's episode is kind of personal to me. I've recorded this for two reasons, but I'll tell you those in a second. It's all about hyper independence. I bet you've been hyper independent before. It's this kind of thing where you say, I've got this, even though you're kind of breaking inside. Have you done that? I'm recording this for two reasons. One, you've probably at this time of year, Happy New Year, put a lot of pressure on yourself and you're trying to do a lot of things alone. Or perhaps two, you love or live with someone who's hyper independent and they are doing a lot on their own and you don't know how to help them. So today I'm going to go through three things. One, how people become hyper independent. Two, the cost of being really independent. And three, how you can support someone who's really hyper independent, because they might be in your life and you might love someone who's in that situation and you know you want to help. All right, let's go. This is me. This is a topic that is very personal to me. And it's because I have been very hyper independent. I can think of so many examples over my life, and particularly this year. And one example, I'm looking out my window. It is January and all I see is white. There is snow everywhere. One example that's easy for me to share is that I couldn't get the snow removed. About a year ago at this time, even a month ago, I have been struggling with snow. Now, I have two crushed discs in my back. I'm a very strong person. I'm very capable. I can remove a lot of snow. I've removed a ridiculous amount of snow in my life. But I couldn't do it myself. I had too much on my plate a year ago, managing being a single mom, still am doing that. And I just couldn't get the snow removed. And I remember it felt like the walk of shame. Like it felt like this burden on my shoulders. It felt so hard. I was quite literally walking down my street to go to a neighbor's who I didn't know very well, and ask them, hey, can I get some help? Can you use your machine to help remove some snow on my driveway? I just can't do it alone. Me and my daughter can't do it. We don't have the ability and time, and it was hard. And I was almost in tears on the way there because it felt that hard to ask. And then even the feeling of guilt when they had done it and then did it again without asking when it snowed again. It just kept dumping snow. In January and February last year, there was this inordinate amount of snow. And I felt this guilt when they had come and done it again. And then this further guilt when I had to go and ask again because I needed it. And it was really hard. And I realize now, and kind of knew at the time, but was so in a state of overwhelm and urgency and survival that I wasn't clear on it then. But I can see now how my level of hyper independence had created an extra level of exhaustion, an extra level of burden in my life. So let me tell you how this is created, the cost if you are a very independent person, and also how you can help an independent person. Now, first of all, you probably are aware of the amazing things about being independent. You get shit done. You do a lot of stuff. You can do more than most people because you've figured out how to when no one taught you, no one showed you, no one gave you a hand, and you just are capable of way more than most people because you've been independent. So there's this reinforcement that happens with being capable and being able to get stuff done and not having to rely on other people. It happens faster. When you can do it yourself, things happen faster. When you don't have to ask or go for help or learn something from someone else that you have to depend on to teach you or hold your hand, and you figure it out yourself, it also feels very empowering. So there's all kinds of plus sides to being really independent, and there are costs. But how does it happen in the first place? How does someone become really independent? So this might be you, or it might be someone that you love. It might be someone you work with, and it has its cost. So what happens? We see this as a strength, And it is a strength, but it can also be a trauma response. And it's misunderstood by most people. So what happens, and I'm going to give you 3 main things that cause this. And this is coming from a personal space, stuff that I've worked through on my own, self-coaching with a coach, with a therapist, to see how I can not burden myself further by being hyper independent. I'm always going to be independent. I'm always going to be capable. You are too. But let's not take it to an extreme that causes more pain for yourself or other people that's completely unnecessary. So number 1, this typically comes from early betrayal or some form of neglect, where there's either a childhood trauma or there have been parents or family members who have been emotionally unavailable or have been unavailable in other ways, not just emotionally. And so a child learns that they can't depend on someone else. And it can be a good thing in some ways, and that child becomes more independent, more autonomous, and things like that. But when it comes from a space of trauma or a space of neglect, or they've been let down by caregivers, it starts this hypervigilance. A kid learns that no one's coming, I have to do it myself. If I want breakfast, I have to make it myself. If I want to get to that thing with my friends, I have to find a way myself, because that caregiver is not going to be there. So that's where it comes, number 1. There's this early sort of neglect, lack of response, trauma, potentially betrayal. And remember, I don't want to throw around terms like trauma loosely. What is a trauma for one human may not be for another human. It really depends on the circumstance, the individual. There's so many factors there. So I don't want to throw around that term loosely. And for me, that word, I don't have a lot of negative attachment to that word, whereas a lot of people do. I see it as kind of a factual thing, like, oh, that adversely affected this human or myself, and this was the response that's often called a trauma response. And I look at it more like a sequence of events, and that helps me understand those situations. So that's number 1, the early betrayal or some sort of trauma or lack of caregiving. Number 2 is a form of cultural conditioning or family conditioning that happens. And this is where, in that social context of a family or the culture that they're in, it's seen as a strength to be independent. And that's reinforced over and over. So it's where if vulnerability in this particular culture or family equals weakness, if someone is not able to hold their own or stand on their own 2 feet, it's more of a message of don't be a burden, don't be weak, be strong, handle it yourself. And that's the second way that independence and hyper independence can be created, is this conditioning, this socializing, this family or cultural environment that people grow up in. And number 3, survival, is bloody survival through control. And I've experienced this many a time as well. It's in environments of chaos where there is some really challenging or demanding things happening. It could be in a work environment. It could be in a family environment. Something could have happened. In my situation, it could have been being a single mom. It could have been divorce. It could have been running a business. Any of those things can create a need for control, because when our brains are in an overwhelmed state, the more we have order, the more we have control, then the more we feel like we can survive. We can get through this time of chaos or overwhelm. It feels like safety. It becomes a coping mechanism, not a personality trait, but when it's used over and over, it becomes a habit. So it's a coping mechanism. It's not who we are. It's simply something we chose to do in order to navigate a time and put order and control in a time that was too hard. So hyper-independence, it's not this badge of honor. It's more like a scar that's dressed up as armor. And it's an armor that can become so heavy, like think the heavy metal armor that's just crushing us. And it doesn't have to be that way. So here are the costs, because the cost of being hyper independent is exhausting. It's exhausting to feel like it's always on your own and that you are doing everything and you have to do, and it becomes a mindset, it becomes a habit. So number one, it's exhausting because the person who's hyper independent, they're trying and thinking that they need to be carrying everything. It's emotionally, logistically, financially, it's all of these things that this person, and this has been me, carrying it. It's the invisible labor of never asking for help. And I see this in business leaders all of the time. There's this invisible labor going on of the things that they have to handle that there's no one else in the company to handle because it's their role of CEO or founder or whatever their high-level management or leadership role is. And when that's the case, this invisible labor, financial, emotional, logistical, operational, it's a lot. It's a lot. And number two, so it becomes exhausting. It becomes depleting. Number two, it's lonely. It is very lonely. I thought of years ago when the kids were old enough to learn to cook. And I wanted to teach them to cook, but I also didn't have the time to. And often I wanted them to do their homework while I was cooking dinner. So I was usually in charge of cooking dinners early dinner, right before one of them or many of them were going to practices, and they'd all be sitting at the table doing homework. And I felt like if I asked them to come and help, I'd be taking away from their homework. And we only had this little window of time before we were going on to the next sporting event. And so I would be by myself in the kitchen while there are 4 kids at a table and a toddler running around while they're doing homework. And in that situation, I rationalized why that had to be, but I could have always just grabbed one of them for 10 minutes to teach them what I was doing, get some help, and rotate, but it felt like too much at the time. And so my form of controlling that environment was just to get it done, but it is lonely because you don't create that bond of doing the thing with someone else, which can be beautiful. It can be a wonderful thing. And for someone who's hyper independent, it's hard to let people in. The relationship then, when you are not letting people in to work together with something that you might feel vulnerable in, the relationship stays surface level. So when someone becomes hyper independent and they're only doing their own thing, the relationship never gets deep, because to get deep in a relationship, the people have to be working through something together. And I promise you, when I finally got the kids to start cooking together, I would order a HelloFresh or a chef's plate, one of those put together meal kits. And that's how I started to teach them to cook, by having 2 of them work on it together. And I'd rotate which 2 were working on the recipe together to teach them how to cook. And I would hear the fights in the kitchen, and sometimes I come in and intervene and offer some tips or things like that. But it's that working through the irritation of someone else not doing the way you want it done, or the frustration of someone working slower or faster than you are. And it's that dynamic with 2 people or more that creates a deeper relationship, because you've had to work through the hard things together. And that takes the relationship from surface level to something that's deeper and more profound. It's a really amazing thing. And in that lonely space of independence, hyper independence, it feels risky when you are trusting someone. Even if you deeply desire that connection or collaboration or that relationship of trust, you might deeply desire it, but it feels so risky if you've been accustomed to doing things on your own. There's so much more certainty when you're working on it on your own, when you know what you are capable of and what you can do in your own timeline. And to lean on someone else might feel really scary and risky. So that's number 2. The exhausting is number 1. Number 2 is that it's lonely. And number 3 is that it's misunderstood. So as I said earlier, being so capable, so strong, what happens is that people stop checking in because they have identified you. They've given you an identity of someone who is so capable or so strong. The most put together, they can do it. The most put together person is often the one that is struggling the most. I had a client who said this line and I never forgot it. She said, "Capable people are punished." And I thought, oh, and I thought of it in different contexts and I, wrapped my mind around it. And I really was working with her on just transmuting that particular thought into something that would be less heavy, less damaging. And for her, it was just fact. And for me, I was like, well, it's actually your thought. And if you think of it as fact, that's a pretty heavy thought. So capable people are then identified by other people as the person who gets it done, the person who's strong, the person who handles everything. And the truth is that person is typically struggling to do all that. And even though they make it look easy, they're having a hard time doing all those things because it's not easy for anyone to take anything on their own. Okay, so those are the top 3 things as to what it's like. So we've looked at how people become hyper-independent. We've looked at the costs of hyper-independent. But here's the best part. Here is the best part. How do you support someone who's hyper-dependent? And I'm going to separate this into 2 things. The way that can be helpful and the way that can be harmful. What helps and what hurts someone who is hyper-independent? How can you approach this? You might be the person who loves someone who's hyper-independent, works with someone who's hyper-independent, or supports them, and you find it hard. So what helps and what hurts when you are with someone who's hyper-independent? So number 1, we're going to go into what helps. What helps is offering specific help proactively. And what I mean, and this is an example. I remember so clearly, I had met someone who was barely an acquaintance. They were the mother of my daughter's friend. I had barely known them. I was barely living in London. I didn't know very many people. And I had just had a baby. I had just had my youngest, Maeve. And I was so overwhelmed with having 5 children. The 5th one was brand new, a business, being in a new city. Like I was just drowning in overwhelm. And this acquaintance, this woman who was the mother of my daughter's friend, came and dropped off an entire casserole. And I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I didn't ask for it. She had taken it upon herself to do this, and I could not believe it. So when you offer specific help proactively, it sounds like this. Hey, I'll drop off dinner on Thursday. No need to talk unless you want to. You are presupposing that they don't have time, they're already overwhelmed, and that this will help. Here you go. And the reason it works is that there's no pressure to initiate, there's no pressure to perform, there's no pressure to entertain. It is just, here you go, because that person is struggling. It's just a helpful thing that, now, don't think that independent person might not feel some guilt or feel like they need to reciprocate, or they may have that, but we want to do something that helps, and it typically needs to be specific and it needs to be proactive. That's the important part. Okay, number 2, you want to model interdependence. You want to model what it looks like to work together. And this means let them support you sometimes. It balances the power dynamic. Remember that thing I said about how much guilt the independent person is going to feel, or perhaps like they need to reciprocate and like that there's more on their plate and they just can't do that at that point. Then ask them for help at some point in a way that accommodates their time or whatever, but it balances the power dynamic. It builds trust through sharing, reciprocity, working together, and builds the example models the example of working together. Now, some of you are thinking, well, I don't have time for that. And what does that look like? And the truth is that if you care about your relationships, you're going to make time for it. It's just the way it is. And this has been the lesson that I've learned over and over again, is that relationships take time. They take interactions. They take multiple touch points. They take really small touch points. Like the tiniest of things can build relationships. And modeling that interdependence is a way that teaches the hyper-independent person that it doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be this big exchange or anything like that. It's the small stuff, and we can do it together, and I need your help sometimes too. And that makes it normalized. It's a really good thing. And then number 3, this helps a lot, is being reliable over time. If you consistently follow through with that person, having gone through a divorce in this last year, I had a couple of people, or more than a couple of people, I had probably 5 people without me asking, just call. Oh, okay. I could be moved to tears by this. Call and text and check in and call and text and check in without me asking them. And they just did it over and over again. And I was like, holy cow. They were consistent. They were reliable. And what they're doing for someone who's hyper independent, they are earning the right to get closer. They're proving that you're not always the one that needs to be needed. They're proving to you that you're safe in their context, in their environment. And it's so powerful because all they're doing is popping a text or popping a call or showing up without being asked, over and over, consistently, reliably. And it's so, so powerful, as you can tell by my emotional response. So number 1, this is how it helps. Offer specific help proactively. Number 2, model that interdependence. Ask them for help in small ways. Let that happen. And number 3, be consistent over time. It shows reliability. It builds safety. It builds trust. It's really powerful for that person who doesn't know that it's safe to lean on other people. That's what that consistency and that reliability, those small check-ins create, that it's safe to rely on other people. Here are the things that hurt when you're have the best intentions in the whole wide world for someone who's really hyper independent, but it hurts the situation. It's this line, you've heard it over and over again. It's the line that says, let me know if you need anything. Give me a call if you need anything. Let me know if you need some help. Don't say that. To a hyper-independent person, they will never reach out to you. They literally have to be damn near death in order to try and ask for help. It's so hard for them. So it doesn't help. So what they actually are translating into that is, don't actually ask me for anything. They can't ask for something. So replace this with something like, I'll check in on Friday. No pressure to reply. Just letting you know I'm thinking of you. I'm just checking in on you. That is more hopeful than let me know if you need anything. Okay? That's number 1. Don't say those words. Let me know if you need anything. Let me know if I can help. It doesn't work. Okay, number 2. Don't try to fix or break through the walls that a hyper-independent person has. If you go and say to them, oh, you just have problems asking for help, it doesn't help them at all. It's not that they tried to be this way. This is a coping mechanism. This is something that they learned that was the way to survive at some point in their life. So pushing for emotional access creates shutdown or withdrawal. I had a family member recently reach out to me and say, you've been ghosting me, you haven't returned my calls, and this is the exact opposite of who you teach and preach to be. And I replied and I said, well, I did message you back that I was unavailable. And I said, the truth is that I just either didn't have the time to reply to you. And when I finally had the time, I didn't have the energy to explain what was going on. And it's hard for other people when they're trying to help. And that was hard for my family member. They were trying to help. They were trying to show up for me. And I had a wall up because I was literally in survival mode. And so by pushing, because that final email was pushing, then what I think I needed was just a continual check-in. But then kind of laying it on that you aren't checking back, you're ghosting me, or this and that, it's hard. So for someone who's hyper independent, you need to hold space. You need to keep checking in, but let the closeness be their choice because it's hard for them to rely on other people. That's why the hyper independence is there. And number 3, don't take it personally if they have distance. What happens when someone's trying to get close to someone who's hyper independent and they're not responding, then it's easy to take that personally. Like they don't see how much I'm trying to help them. They don't care. And that's not the case at all. It's simply a self-protection that's not about the other person. It's about history. It's about survival. So instead of reacting, remain consistent, remain emotionally available. If you can do that, the kind of trust that develops for someone that's hyper independent is massive. It's massive. It's huge. So those 3 things of what not to do with someone who's hyper independent is do not say, let me know if you need anything. Do not try to fix or bust through the walls, and do not take it personally when they may not be receptive to the help or able to respond or be close to you in that situation. Okay, so what I want to wrap this up with, because I think that this is helpful, that even just researching this topic is so helpful for me because I've gone through the work to recognize when this is showing up in my life and how to trust and how to integrate with other people in this manner. And this is the final thing that I'd like to say about this, is that if you're hyper independent, you're not broken. You're adaptive. You've had to adapt. It's been something that was necessary. It's a coping mechanism in a lot of ways, but you're adaptive. It's an amazing thing. Even the strongest trees need light and water. So you can be really independent. You can be really autonomous and very, very capable. And we still need others. We still need help. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it takes more courage to work with other people, build those relationships, rely and trust on other people than it does to stay hyper independent. So if this resonates with you, share it with someone who's either been hyper independent or loves someone or works with someone who is very independent, because I think this helps all parties involved. You can see how it came about. You can see what the cost is and how to really help, how to really make a difference. And reach out to me, DM me your story of what this is like for you and any questions you might have around it. All right, keep doing your thing. Keep being empowered. I hope this serves you, and have a great, great rest of your week. Happy January. Go get it.